This video does not confirm or diagnose any medical condition. Any health-related mentions are purely alleged and discussed in a general commentary context.
Y'all, Hollywood isn't just buzzing, it's rattling to its core, and this has nothing to do with a messy split, a viral beef, or some sloppy DM exposure. According to Jaguar Wright, the industry has been moving in silence, shielding a powerful inner circle of elite men after what she describes as a reckless series of private choices that all trace back to Teyana Taylor. During a tense live broadcast, Jaguar didn't hint or imply, she went straight for the jugular. She locked in on Iman Shumpert first, claiming he was the earliest to sense that something was deeply off. Then she widened the circle. Drake, Chris Brown, Aaron Pierre, Kanye West, and in a twist nobody saw coming, Leonardo DiCaprio, all allegedly connected by the same disturbing thread. Jaguar insisted this was never about love or dating, it was about exposure, containment, and who gets shielded when the narrative turns dangerous. She alleged that once certain behind-closed-doors moments surfaced, Hollywood hit emergency mode. Attorneys sprang into action, NDAs were pushed across tables, PR teams rewrote reality, and almost overnight, people weren't the same. Moods shifted. Paranoia crept in. Relationships collapsed without warning or reason. Fans started noticing the gaps. Vanishing faces. Pushback releases. Public emotional spirals. But the truth? Jaguar says it was buried on purpose, because it was never supposed to see daylight. According to her, anyone who unraveled afterward wasn't unstable, they were neutralized, because the truth made them a liability. This isn't gossip. It's a signal flare from inside the machine. And Jaguar says what she cracked open is only the beginning, the first fracture in a wall hiding something much darker.
Fired her ex-husband. She made him the bad guy.
The divorce would have never even been out if he didn't file the motion to use our full and legal name.
Then she had to go and she had to get new energy. What was she calling him? Her apple pies? Have you seen my apple pies?
Did you see my apple pie?
Oh my God, you did a love scene with Leonardo DiCaprio.
How was it shooting those scenes with Leo?
It was just work.
Strap in. Because beneath the flawless photo ops and award show glamour, Hollywood has always been far more skilled at concealing harm than stopping it. What played out during Jaguar Wright's live stream wasn't disorder. It wasn't spiraling talk. It was calculated, measured. The kind of pacing that signals someone knows the gravity of what they're revealing and understands exactly why it stayed hidden for years. She didn't start with theatrics. She started with absence, the heavy quiet that exists when powerful people make a collective decision not to talk. According to Jaguar, that silence preserved careers while others were left to fracture in private. She alleged that for a long time, a troubling cycle circulated behind the scenes, centered around Teyana Taylor and a succession of influential men spanning music, athletics, and film. Jaguar positioned it as a matter of exposure, not emotion. Choices made away from cameras that carried fallout far beyond personal feelings. Fallout that, she claimed, was never fully explained to everyone involved. And when red flags emerged, the response wasn't honesty, it was containment. She alleged that Iman Shumpert was one of the earliest to feel that something was off. Not loudly, not publicly, but in subtle ways those close to him would later recognize: guarded energy, altered routines, distance replacing comfort. According to Jaguar, that moment wasn't an exception. It was the start of a recurring pattern. As the live went on, additional names surfaced. Drake, Chris Brown, Aaron Pierre, Kanye West. Each mention increased the tension, not due to direct claims, but because of what their overlap implied, connection through the same unspoken risk and enforced quiet. Then a name landed that changed the air entirely. Leonardo DiCaprio. Jaguar didn't level a direct charge. She didn't have to. The implication alone carried enough weight to signal just how expansive the alleged web might be. According to Jaguar, once internal concerns were raised, Hollywood defaulted to its oldest reflex. Attorneys were looped in before emotions were addressed. PR teams shaped storylines before anyone processed what happened. NDAs became armor, not protection. She claimed there were records, communication, the kind of emotional pressure that comes from being instructed not to question, only to fall in line. Jaguar claimed that when people voiced unease, they weren't given honesty. They were handled. Their reactions were reframed as emotional instability. their concerns dismissed as exaggeration. According to her, this labeling wasn't accidental. Once someone is deemed unreliable, their voice stops carrying weight. She alleged this silent undermining happened again and again. Not through loud character attacks, but through quiet professional erosion. Calls unanswered. Replies delayed. Opportunities that simply vanished. Nothing blatant enough to confront, just enough to leave someone alone. The same pattern, she suggested, appeared around Amon Shumpert. No charges. No headlines. Just a gradual pullback from environments where questions might surface too openly. To the public, it looked like personal realignment. Jaguar hinted it was something else entirely, a boundary quietly being drawn. According to her, that boundary stretched beyond personal ties. Creative partners were subtly cautioned. Associates encouraged to keep discussions surface level. Anyone too close became a variable that needed monitoring. She alleged that Drake and Chris Brown entered the conversation not because of visible controversy, but because of private proximity. Proximity that, according to Jaguar, was never intended to coexist with openness. She stressed that the issue wasn't individual actions, it was the silence that followed them. And then there was Kanye West. Jaguar suggested that when someone already branded as volatile enters situations like this, the response intensifies. Not to safeguard the individual, but to safeguard the system. According to her, unpredictability disrupts controlled storytelling, and controlled storytelling is the foundation of image protection. She implied this is why certain voices get platforms while others are faded out. Why some collapses are turned into public theater while others are quietly absorbed. It's not about truth, it's about containment. As she went on, Jaguar widened the lens beyond names to the machinery itself. She outlined an unwritten chain of command when crises emerge. Legal teams move first. Public relations follows. Reputation strategists lock things in. Only after the story is secured do human consequences get acknowledged, if they ever do. According to Jaguar, non-disclosure agreements function as more than paperwork. They operate on the mind. They don't merely mute voices. They cut people off. Once signed, individuals are left carrying experiences they're forbidden to share, even with those they trust most. She claimed that this forced isolation caused the deepest damage of all. Because when people are prevented from speaking, they turn inward. And when everything turns inward, fractures begin to form. Jaguar alleged that members of the media felt something was wrong long before audiences caught on. Leads came in. Questions were prepared. But articles stalled. Editors grew cautious. Legal teams stepped in. According to her, access was quietly weaponized, pushed beyond the line, and you're locked out for good. Blogs suddenly went quiet. Deep dives dissolved. The internet, usually addicted to turmoil, oddly lost interest. She suggested that wasn't accidental, it was pressure. As fragments leaked onto social platforms, fans began spotting inconsistencies that didn't quite align. Breakups with no context. Projects postponed without reason. Public figures disappearing precisely when momentum should have peaked. Jaguar claimed these weren't coincidences, they were indicators. Indicators of a system that values uninterrupted profit over responsibility. She stressed this wasn't about turning one woman into a villain or handing powerful men a free pass. It was about revealing how quickly lived experiences are reduced when they threaten marketable images. According to her, some people were steered toward private counseling while being clearly or quietly instructed to remain silent. Not because telling the truth was wrong, but because it was inconvenient. She characterized that silence as enforced. As the live stream continued, the mood shifted from disclosure to alert. She said what she shared barely grazed the surface. That the names mentioned belonged to a far wider network. That evidence didn't live only in texts or files, but in behavior patterns, timelines, and abrupt changes the public brushed off as random. She warned that when silence becomes standard procedure, harm spreads unseen. Near the end, Jaguar addressed the backlash she knew was coming. She acknowledged she'd be labeled resentful, unstable, attention-hungry. She said that narrative was predictable and strategic. Because when truth comes from someone already discredited, it's easier to dismiss. But she maintained that refusing to engage with this story wouldn't erase it. She said the industry could already feel the strain. Not in headlines, behind closed doors. Trust has fractured. Dialogue has shifted. People are observing each other differently now. According to her, once secrecy is called out, it weakens. She closed with words that didn't feel like an ending, but a beginning. She said this was never about ending careers. It was about challenging a culture that discards people the moment they become inconvenient. A culture where silence earns protection and honesty invites punishment. She warned that more would come not out of desire, but inevitability. Because structures built on concealment eventually collapse. Hollywood, she said, is entering a phase it can't fully manage. And the most severe damage won't come from scandals or cancellations. It will come from the understanding that trust was traded away long before anyone heard the truth. And once that understanding settles in, no amount of She framed the moment as a loyalty trial. Who remains quiet? Who dares to question? Who becomes a problem? According to Jaguar, this is where reputations are actually decided, not on stages or feeds, but behind closed doors where access equals leverage. She suggested some chose security over truth, while others found themselves suddenly alone for waiting too long to decide. She referenced Teyana Taylor again, not as a villain, but as an example of how swiftly narratives are defended when revenue is involved. She alleged the image never fractured because the machinery around it functioned perfectly. Every appearance calculated. Every absence explained. Every inquiry redirected. According to her, none of that was accidental, it was practiced. She claimed those on the margins paid the highest price. People without elite teams to buffer them. People who couldn't afford misinterpretation. When they hesitated, hesitation was labeled instability. When they pulled back, it was framed as unreliability. She returned to Aaron Pierre, suggesting that what appeared to be quiet withdrawal was actually self-preservation. According to her, surviving in an environment where speaking is discouraged demands constant restraint. Every sentence becomes a risk. Every pause becomes intentional. She described this as mental erosion, not a sudden breakdown, but a slow drain. Confidence giving way to caution. Curiosity replaced by compliance. Jaguar argued this is how control operates without force. You don't have to silence people outright. You just make honesty more expensive than quiet. She suggested Amon Shumpert and others felt versions of that same pressure. No showdowns. No threats. Just an unspoken awareness that getting too close to certain questions could shrink future paths. According to her, most people don't need warnings, they only need examples. She widened the scope to the media itself. She alleged reporters recognized the weight of the story, but also the professional cost. Sources went silent. Editors demanded confirmations that could never be attributed. Legal teams raised flags not about truth, but risk. She explained how stories disappear softly, not because they're false, but because no one is allowed to tell them. According to Jaguar, audiences often assume silence means nothing occurred. She argued the opposite. Silence, she said, usually means too much happened off record. As social media spun over surface-level drama, she claimed the core narrative stayed untouched. Fans debated timelines, argued intentions, took sides, all while the central issue remained unseen because it was never meant to be visible. She framed that distraction as deliberate. Give people a smaller conflict, and they won't notice what's being guarded. She alleged Drake, Chris Brown, and Kanye West entered the conversation not through headlines, but through mutual avoidance. According to her, when multiple powerful figures sidestep the same subject, coincidence is unlikely. She was careful not to declare guilt. Instead, she stressed accountability of systems that value stability over transparency. She spoke of contracts meant to protect brands that end up isolating people, of guidance that sounds supportive but ultimately suppresses truth, of how quickly concern transforms into control when profit is on the line. Jaguar argued this is how trust collapses without noise. Not through outright lies, but through withholding just enough truth that people can't emotionally protect themselves. She suggested the industry overlooked one critical factor: memory. Fans remember when people vanish. Audiences remember when timelines don't line up. Patterns outlast press runs. According to her, once dots start connecting, containment weakens. Not immediately, but visibly. She warned the next chapter wouldn't arrive as a spectacle. It would arrive quietly, through accumulation. Minor confirmations. Awkward moments. Unplanned slips that don't match the official version. She framed this not as a threat, but as consequence. Structures built on silence eventually trip over their own contradictions. As she neared the end, Jaguar acknowledged the personal toll of speaking out. She said backlash was guaranteed. Smears. Motive checks. Attacks on credibility. She accepted all of it. According to her, dismantling the messenger is always easier than confronting the message. But she insisted the narrative was never hers to own. It belonged to those left disoriented. Those quietly pushed aside. Those expected to move forward without ever being told why. She described this moment not as outrage, but as fatigue. Fatigue from watching reality filtered through legal language until it becomes unrecognizable. She said the industry had a chance to choose transparency early. It declined. And now the price is steeper. She closed with reminders, not ultimatums. That visibility doesn't cancel consequences. That silence doesn't erase memory. That control doesn't undo harm. According to Jaguar, what happens next won't be shaped by trending topics or viral outrage. It will be shaped by whether people keep accepting partial truths as complete answers. And once that tolerance ends, the structure depending on it starts to bend, not instantly, but enough to alter everything that follows. And this is where the story stops being content and starts becoming caution. Because what you've heard isn't about celebrity or private drama or who crossed who behind closed doors. It's about what happens when trust becomes expendable and silence is incentivized more than honesty. It's about how easily people are redirected, managed, and emotionally discarded when image protection outweighs human cost. A system without a face did exactly what it was built to do. It absorbed impact. It shifted focus. It isolated fallout. And it kept moving as if nothing occurred. But the people inside it didn't move on the same way. They were left with gaps they couldn't fill, relationships that fractured quietly, and truths no press release could clarify. This kind of betrayal doesn't shout. It settles in. It reshapes how people trust, how they connect, how they speak, and how they choose silence. And here's the part rarely admitted. Stories like this don't endure because they're sensational. They endure because they're recognizable. Because versions of this cycle have repeated for years, different names, different headlines, same conclusion, silence prevails, and truth absorbs the cost. But silence only holds when attention fades. So if this made you uneasy, that's intentional. If it stirred anger, confusion, or discomfort, that's because it wasn't designed to feel reassuring. And if you're still listening, it's because something in you knows there's more beneath the surface than what's been allowed through. This isn't an ending. It's a pause. Because more details exist. More links exist. And once trust fractures at this depth, it never fully repairs. If you're prepared to keep watching what isn't meant to be examined, stay here. Subscribe. Stay aware. And don't turn away, because truth only vanishes when everyone agrees to stop looking.